y'all, my name is Jasmine Jones. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and you are now watching Black Girl, a Therapist in the Wild. And this is a little series I like to call Therapist Sips and Reviews. Today we are sipping on Welch's passion fruit juice and some coffee flavored vodka, and it tastes pretty good. I like this passion fruit juice. You can like mix it with like kind of bitter type flavors and chocolatey type flavors and things like that. She fell. um So today we're reviewing Antebellum, and it is starring Janelle Monáe and some other people. Yes, I said that. Janelle Monáe and some other people. Whatchamacallit from Precious and Empire and other things that she's done. Gabourey Sidibe. There you go. Those are the two recognizable faces from this movie that I will automatically remember their names. Otherwise, it's going to be that person and this person throughout the whole. I'll put pictures in here too, so you'll know who I'm talking about. Kinda. Anyway, this review will have spoilers, so there is a big spoiler for this movie. There's a big twist, so if you are not ready to hear the twist, you haven't seen the movie, just skip the video, because I'm going to be talking about it. And yeah, so let's get into it. So we start off with the camera just panning across a plantation scene. We're thinking this is a regular slave movie with some sci-fi pieces to it. In the previews we see that the main character, Janelle's character, has scenes where she's in the present, modern life, and scenes where she's in the slave life. So starting off, I'm thinking in particular that this is gonna be some sci-fi. She's going back in time, or she switched places with an ancestor, or some weird shit like that. Anyways, it's panning across the plantation. It's a Confederate occupied plantation. There's Confederate soldiers. There's the plantation wife. And then we go back into the back of the plantation. We see Janelle Monáe draped over a horse. And then we see off into the distance the slave quarters. And then we see one of the slaves, a man that has been tied up. He has like a chandelier type chain around his neck, collar. There you go, a collar. And there's like 5 or 6 Confederate soldiers, white men, on top of him, beating him, holding him down to the ground. And he's just kind of like screaming and yelling. And then a little bit off is his wife. We assume is his wife, girlfriend, partner, or whatever. And she's screaming because they're holding him down. And you can just see the terror in their face. Like the cinematography on their faces is amazing. So anyways, the woman runs off from them. And she's screaming and yelling in slow motion, and just the way the light is on her face, and she's like really, really dark, and so the light makes her face look like a black gold, and she's running off into the distance trying to get away from these people that are trying to hurt her. And then the owner of I think he's the owner of the plantation, or he's married to the wife of the plantation. He runs after her and lassos her around the neck. And then she looks at him and she just starts crying, and then she tells him to kill her. And he basically says, well, I will accommodate you. And he shoots her in the face and then drags her back on the horse. The husband, the man, is just distraught after seeing his partner die like that. And then we go to Janelle Monáe and the colonel. So I'm guessing he's the colonel, the captain, or whatever. And she's in the cabin with him, and apparently the 3 of them tried to escape. And so I'm assuming there's 4, because he says through the course of fucking with her that, you caused 2 of your friends to die from trying to escape. And he proceeds to beat her with a belt. He brands her over her clothing, like that burns the cloth into your skin. And then he makes her say her name. And she's just crying and screaming and not saying her name. And I'm thinking like, maybe she doesn't, can't register enough to say her name, or she's too much in pain. And then finally, after he brands her, she says it, and her slave character's name is Eden. So throughout the first half, it's just regular slavery shit, picking cotton. There are some weird pieces to this plantation, though. So the slaves are not allowed to speak to each other. They're not allowed to speak unless spoken to by the white people. Let's see, what else? They keep calling, like, they keep expecting Janelle Monáe's character Eden to help them escape. And I'm just thinking, like, well, if she's coming from the past, like, she just seems really familiar with the plantation. Like she's been there a while. And, after the runaway, it's 6 weeks later. So I don't know how long she was there before trying to run away. But it seems like she's comfortable enough to know who these people are. And so it just makes it seem like, well, if she's coming back in time, like, how the fuck does she know what to do? Why are they expecting her to get them to be free? So the man whose partner was killed keeps coming up to her and it's being like, we need to go, we need to try again, and she's just very quiet and stoic, and she just is. Later on, you realize she's in shock from all the shit that's been happening, but also she's scared, and she keeps telling him, like, just wait and be patient and be quiet, and she keeps ignoring him. So at some point during the movie, they get new slaves, and there's this light-skinned woman on the slave cart, okay? And she's just, like, distraught. Apparently she's pregnant, and she keeps coming up to Janelle Monáe and being like, you're supposed to be the strong one, you're supposed to be brave, why aren't we escaping, why aren't we leaving? So they expect her to get them out of there for some reason, and it's like kind of confusing. During the course of this, we see scenes like the man is made to clean up the furnace where his wife was burnt to death, and he looks down at the bottom and there's her necklace in the furnace, and he just starts tearing at his clothes and has this he just is distraught and overwhelmed because his wife is dead. The light-skinned woman is pregnant, and so you're thinking that this is slavery time. She got raped by some white man, or she was separated from her. We're used to this. We know what's going on. It's still traumatic, but it's one of those desensitization type of traumatics, because this is what this shit is about. When you go through shit like this and this is your life. So but she's like really distraught that she's pregnant. She's really distraught that Janelle Monáe isn't trying to help them escape. She has these high expectations for her. At some point they have a dinner with all the soldiers, and they tell the soldiers that they can have their pick of any of the sapphires in the room. So all of the women are there the black women are there to serve the soldiers dinner and things like that. There's a colonel, he's the one that branded Janelle Monáe, and he comes in and he starts talking about how they killed the Yankees and took over a fort, and how the South will win and all this other stupid shit. And I think he's the colonel or the captain, whatever. And basically, they tell all the soldiers they can have their pick of the women. So the light-skinned woman, her name is Julia, I think. And Julia, something like that. And basically, one of the guys calls her over to service his friend. And his friend seems nervous, like he doesn't want to do it. Like, she's a lady. I'm just like, oh, maybe. Before this all happened, when Julia was speaking to Eden is telling her, you need to be quiet. You need to not talk. You need to listen. These white people will kill you. And the way she said these white people will kill you seems odd to say in a slavery time situation. Because, when you watch the slave movies, it's like they already know the white people will kill them. Like, everybody knows this. So it's kind of like Julia's kind of like, and then Janelle Eden having to tell her that. It's kind of like, yeah. So the guy, the little nervous white man, takes Julia to her, or meets Julia at her cabin. And Julia tries to like soften him up, tells him like he's a nice person and he's not a monster. And she wants to know his name. His name is like David or Daniel or something. And he's just standing there at the door, looking at her, listening to her talk, looking nervous. So we're all thinking like, he's nervous and he cares about people. Nervous does not mean that people care about you. So anyways, after she's done, just letting him know like he's not like those other monsters out there. Like she used the word monsters. He just looks at her and he goes, "Who told you to speak?" So apparently he has a disgust of black people and he feels like he's pure and his friend is out there trying to make him have sex with something disgusting and he doesn't want to have sex with her and how dare she speak to him. And so it unfolds that it's like he's there for a reason. He's racist and he's trash. So she looks shocked and appalled, and at some point he pushes her to the floor. And then she apologizes for talking, whatever. And then he kicks her in her stomach. And that's where we see this whole progression of the next day. They're in the cotton field. Julia's late. And she comes in and she's, her stomach is still hurting from last night. And then she looks down and there's blood coming all down. So she's having a miscarriage. And is it called a miscarriage when somebody like kicks you in your stomach? I mean, the baby comes out, but I just feel like it's just a murder. You just killed her baby. It's not like a consensual I need to get an abortion type shit. Like he just killed her baby. Anyways, the plantation owner that's married to the plantation wife, I'm assuming they're married or whatever, comes over and he wants to know why she's late, what's wrong with her, and Eden says she's sick and she needs to take her to, the back. And this is the part where the black dude who lost his wife has to clean, the furnace because he tries to distract the plantation owner by calling him a cracker. And I'm just like, did they say cracker back at... And then they make him go clean the furnace because he heard what he said, and that's when he collapses and stuff. So there's some things that are like, did they say cracker in slavery times? Like, why are they not aware that these white people will kill them? And why do they need to verbalize? Like, everybody should know that because it's slavery time. And then why are they all expecting Janelle Monáe's character to be like the one to get them out of there? And why is Janelle Monáe acting like, if she's from the future, why isn't she acting more like, oh, I'm in the past and this is horrifying and, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm just like trying to think, like, did she go into a body of somebody that's like, the Underground Railroad person to get people out? Like, is that it? Like, what's going on? I'm trying to put this shit together. I'm confused. So then, Janelle Monáe takes Julia back to her cabin where she has a miscarriage off scene. We don't see it. And all of this time, just traumatic shit is happening. It's traumatic for the husband, the guy that lost his partner, and gnashing and pulling at his clothes and things like that. And Janelle Monáe just continues to have these shocked looks on her face whenever anything bad happens. She comes back from the woman who had a miscarriage and she just is staring off into space and doesn't know what to do. Just shocked. Oh wait, no, is that... I think she did stare off into space too when she came back from helping the woman with her miscarriage. Or maybe, no, they just went straight to the furnace, I think. And then later on, something else happens to make her just to show that she's been through the ringer with these people. So later that night, Janelle Monáe is then... the Eden character is then being raped by the Colonel. So the Colonel feels like she belongs to him and she's his special girl. And she's just laying there catatonic, not moving, not enjoying it, obviously. And there's tears going down her eyes and she's not saying anything. And then he rolls off of her and I think, she goes to sleep. And next thing you know, we hear a phone ringing, a cell phone. And she's waking up and she's in modern times. Her husband's laying next to her. He's like, oh, did you have a bad dream? So now I'm just like, okay, so she's having dreams and shit. These are all dreams and she's going back in time in her dreams. I'm trying to explain this shit. So here comes the spoiler in this little segment. So Janelle Monáe's character in the modern place is Veronica. And she is a sociology professor. She has her doctorate. She has a daughter. She has a husband. She is just kind of researching trauma in Black women and, the how detrimental it is to be being the strong Black woman trope. And she's on news channels debating, eugenics people and things like that. So she has her life together. She's a pretty well-known woman in the, Black community as far as arguing for the struggle and trying to change things and stuff like that in the academic world and things like that. I can't get my words out. The alcohol is starting to kick in. Anyways, so she's supposed to go on this trip where she goes to, I forgot where I think it's North Carolina or something, and she's going there to do a presentation for her book about, the coping persona of Black women and being in the strong Black woman trope and how we have to break those things. So she gets to before she goes on her trip, the morning of, she watches the news show with her family of her debating the eugenics guy. And then she goes and she's gotten a phone call from this white woman. And the white woman is the modern version of the plantation wife. And so I'm just like, what? I mean, maybe they're how like when they have time travel movies and stuff, and you got the modern version, like the ancestor of the slave owner and things like that. And so I'm thinking like maybe this is the ancestor or some shit, I don't know. And she's on there and she's just like really just like condescending and racist underhandedly. She mentions her daughter and says that her daughter could be her daughter's little playmate, like she's a little slave and be her little playmate. She also mentions Janelle Monáe's lipstick and says that it matches her skin tone, but the way she says it, that she's basically like being fucked up to her and shit like that. And basically she's calling and she tells her she's a talent scout, and she was talking to Janelle Monáe Veronica about her appearance on the news, and she was telling her that oh, I noticed you were mentioning your book and you just had to peddle your wares and all this other stupid shit. And Veronica's like, no, because what we were talking about pertained to my book. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And she keeps asking her to turn the camera towards her daughter when her daughter comes in the room and things like that. Just weird shit. And so, after the phone call, Veronica wipes the lipstick off her mouth, just fucking disgusted. And then she goes, on her business trip. So she goes on her business trip and she does her speech and things like that. Before she goes out to do her speech, her public speaking, somebody comes to the door and they have flowers for her. And the card on the flower says happy homecoming or something like that, or welcome to your homecoming. And the person that gives her the flowers is, I think it's either the slave owner or the colonel. I think it's the slave owner of the plantation that's supposed to be married to the plantation wife. And he just stands there creepily, doesn't say shit to her, just says delivery, gives her the flowers, and then when she asks who they're from, he just walks away, doesn't say shit. So she just puts the flowers in her room on the counter, and then she goes downstairs, does her public speaking, and while she's downstairs, here comes the plantation owner's wife, the modern version of her, and she talks to the maid and gets the maid to let her in her room. And she just defiles her room. Like, she puts hair on her pillows. She steals her lipstick and puts it on, and it looks all gross, and it's like over the line and shit. And it's like, yo, bitch, you nasty. And she's just like, you can see on her phone that there's this logo, and it's the same logo as the brand that they put on Eden in during the slavery times and whatever. It's BD. And so she also is wearing, like, when she's putting her lipstick on, we can see that she's also wearing a pin that says BD. So you're just trying to, so now I'm just like, is it that they're like putting her through a simulation? Like, what? And it's not real. Like, I'm trying to figure what the fuck is going on. So anyways, after her presentation, her friend Gabourey Sidibe's character comes over, congratulates her, is just happy. She met her upstairs earlier too, so she was doing yoga poses upstairs before all this, and Gabourey met her in her room, and they were chit-chatting and all this other great shit. And so she's meeting her after her thing, and so basically Gabourey invites her to dinner, and she also wants to go like partying after, just to celebrate her public speaking event. And so she's just like, no, because I have a 6:00 flight in the morning and I have to get back to my family. She's been texting her husband, in the car on the way to dinner and all this other stuff. So her and her husband are in love. It's like solidified and shit. So she goes upstairs, changes, and then she comes downstairs and they head over to, with her with Gabourey, and then she has another friend who appears to be white. I don't know, she may be Latina, I don't know, but she appears to be white. And so they get to the place, and a few just things to notice is that when she checked into the hotel, or no, when she made the reservation, there was some off-puttingness with the front desk lady, where like she was about to make the reservation and then the phone rang and the front desk lady answered the phone before even acknowledging Victoria. And so Victoria just stood there just hella pissed off. When they get to the restaurant, it's like they tried to put them in the back by the kitchen, and Gabourey had to say some shit to them and read them for filth and shit. And then when they're seated, they're asking for drinks, and they ask for a bottle for the table, and the waiter tries to like give them some like cheap ass wine, and then Victoria had to be like, no bitch, this is what we want. So it's just like all these presumptions, these little tiny microaggressions that are some bullshit. So anyways, they are at the table, they're eating, they're talking, they're enjoying themselves, and Victoria is just talking about all the amazing things that she's done and what she wants to do and how she needs to get home to her husband and child and all this other shit. And then they get done. Her friends go off, and they're, Uber black, I think. They have a black SUV, and then she gets into her SUV, and we notice right off that the SUV driver is like playing this weird ass music really loud, and Victoria keeps telling her to turn it down. And while Victoria's in the car, her Uber driver that's supposed to pick her up calls her and says, I'm here out front, where are you? And Victoria's like, no, I'm in my car. So it's not registering to her what the Uber driver is saying. And so Victoria is getting more and more agitated by the music. She eventually hangs up the phone with the Uber driver, and then she keeps telling the driver to turn the music down. And then she looks up in the mirror and realizes the driver is the lady that was on the video call with her earlier that morning. And the lady puts her lipstick on because she noticed that her lipstick was missing when she was in the restaurant, or when she was about to leave the restaurant, because they were taking a selfie and she wanted to, touch up before her pictures. Girl, be cute. And so then a hand comes, she looks up and she realizes what's going on, and then a hand comes from the back seat around her mouth, and it's missing its ring finger, and it covers her mouth, and she's screaming, and then they bust her head against the window and knock her out. So the plantation owner is missing his ring finger when he was touching. So when he told the woman earlier that he shot in the face that he would accommodate her, he grazed her face with his hand and made a point to show that his ring finger was missing. So Next thing you know, we hear a phone ringing, and Eden is waking up in the slave quarters. She tiptoes to the window. She does the whole crab walk thing over the planks that don't squeak and shit like that. So the things that she was practicing earlier. And she looks out the window and sees the colonel, the main guy, on a cell phone. And that's when you know that this shit is some fucked up shit. They're doing some real life plantation cosplay where they're kidnapping black people, raping, pillaging, murdering them. And, I just had to stop the movie there and just be like, does this happen? First off, we were scared to be, experimented on, kidnapped. And now I'm just like, is there some fake plantations out there trying to just kidnap and murder us? Let me know. So this is all in real time. This is real. Everybody here is modern. These people, that's why the lady was like, kept asking her to escape. That's why the dude kept asking her to escape, because they know her as a public speaker. They know her as a person that is an activist and things like that. And they're looking at her like, why you ain't trying harder and all this other stupid shit. So this is real. This is real. This is real time. Like this is a whole, like, we're kidnapping and murdering black people and pretending slavery and raping them, because we want whiteness to be the greatest thing since sliced bread so bad that we just created this whole facility to kidnap, rape, murder black people. Is it real? Because I was hearing about, a few years ago where black people were voluntarily like going to this plantation simulation and pretending to be slaves. I forgot what it was called, but they were pretending to be slaves and they were doing this shit voluntarily, and then they were escaping, and that would be like the little adventure of the place. Like you escape, the slavery, and then the white people try to catch you and shit, and there was this big uproar and shit because it was like, why are you trying to relive slavery? What is this? So if they're doing it voluntarily, I'm just curious, like, is there some bunker underneath the ground and it looks like a whole plantation simulation? Let me know what's out, because this is why I don't talk to strangers. I don't be around. No. Anyways, she sees that there's a cell phone on the plantation and that this dude has it. So the dude is actually a senator. So he's a senator and he owns this Civil War reenactment park. And the Civil War reenactment park is in the front. And this whole plantation thing where they murder and rape and pillage black people is in the back. So she knows he has a cell phone. So she makes this plan in her mind to get it. But she's not necessarily sure how she's going to do it. So I think this is before... I think it's before. Okay, so Julia ends up, hanging herself at some point. Yeah, it was after, because she had a tattoo on her ankle, and they wasn't going to show that before they went back to the flashback. So it was the modern times was a flashback. So the next day, at some point, Victoria is looking for Julia. And so she goes into the cabin, and Julia has hung herself, and she has like this tattoo on her ankle, and you just realize, oh, that was her baby. This is not like slavery times where we just have to begrudgingly and just be used to all this shit. That was her baby that was stolen from her, and this is not something to be used to where you can just numb yourself and then try to get by. This is like some bullshit where she was raped and pillaged and now kicked in the stomach, and her baby that she planned with probably her partner or whatever, even if she didn't plan, grew attachment to. Not saying that slaves in slavery times did not grow attachment to their children, but it's kind of like how we feel about school shootings today. There's a certain desensitization to it because we're so used to it, which is not okay, but it helps us go on. So when you're used to that type of shit every day, you have like a certain reaction to just, when shit like this, just knowing that these white people will kill us, we don't have to say it. We just have to do what we're told to do. Knowing that these white people rape and pillage, knowing that these white people will kill your baby or sell your baby or something like that, and just knowing it and doing something in your mind to desensitize so that you can go on. So it was just kind of weird that hadn't happened in her mind, and she was just frantic about getting away and being free and getting the fuck away from there. And it just all fell into place, calling them crackers, them expecting Veronica to save them and shit. So Veronica sees her hanging there, she gets her down, and she just, that's the last straw. So she's been planning quietly a way to escape for a while, but she just needed to see that cell phone to kind of solidify the plan. And so Veronica goes back to the field, and she's just shook. She's just in shock. Like, her whole face is just still. And she just is looking off into the distance and doesn't know how to cope with the fact that she just saw Julia hanging there because her baby is gone. And she has to be at this place and, all the things. So she makes a plan for that night. Somehow ends up telling the guy that lost his partner that, we're leaving tonight. This is it. And so she makes a plan. And then when she's in bed after the senator rapes her, she basically does this yoga move from earlier when she was at the hotel, whoever knows however long ago. Oh, and earlier when he was on the phone and she was listening to him, apparently he was talking about how her husband and child are continuing to go on the news and look for her. So she knows that her husband and child are still out there looking for her. And something that she does for comfort is her daughter drew her a picture before her trip for her public speaking, and it was like a picture, I don't remember what it was. It was two people and they were doing something. I think it was her and her mom or something. And so she carved it into the wall, and we couldn't see what she was doing for most of the movie. So during the points where things would get too overwhelming in the movie, she would go to this thing that she carved into the wall, or that was carved into the wall, and she would just rub it and rock back and forth, and that would be her like self-soothing thing. So we see when she's doing the yoga bend to get out of the bed, so she does this yoga bend, back bend over him very quietly to get out of the bed. They show that she had recreated her child's picture on the wall. And that's what she's been rubbing like the whole entire time that she's, been on that plantation. So then she crab walks across the planks, goes to the horse and gets outside, opens the door, gets outside, gets the guy from earlier meets her. They get to the horse, they get the cell phone, and then they hear two of the Confederate soldiers coming, drop the phone, run around the corner, and they just wait and hide. And one of them is Daniel or David, the one that kicked Julia in the stomach earlier. Trash motherfucker. So they quietly follow the Confederate soldiers because they don't know whose phone that is. The rule is they can't have phones on the facilities or whatever, and they follow them out to the field, knock them out, take the phone from Daniel, David, whatever, and then they try to make a phone call to the police or send, but there's no signal, I think. Or no, there's no signal in the field. They go back to the cabin. They call the police. There's no signal, and so they can't get the phone open. They can only do the emergency phone call thing. So what she does is she needs facial recognition. They go back to the cabin, beat the senator's ass, knock him out, but the senator basically kills the dude, and gets his hit in and kills the dude, and then that's when he gets knocked out eventually. And so while he's knocked out, Veronica takes a picture of his face, or does his facial recognition, opens the phone, and she's able to send her location out. And then she drags him to the furnace. She wraps him in the Confederate flag, and she's doing all of this, and I'm just like, before y'all got caught trying to escape, but maybe because the senator had some weird ass, attachment to her. And every time he saw her on television, he thought she was an uppity negress, but also he had some weird ass fetishism shit going on as well. So, when she escaped, he was the one going after her and shit, trying to get her back and stuff. So there was something there burning up under his butt to make him get her back. And so now he's the one wrapped in the Confederate flag. So it's like no one else is really paying that much attention to her because that's the senator's bitch. And so it's like, whatever. So she puts him in the furnace. Then she goes and calls, I think it was the plantation owner or whatever. And she's screaming and she's saying there's something wrong with dude. He's in the furnace. And then she locks them in the furnace too. And she sets that bitch on fire. And it's beautiful. I kept just saying, please let this be a happy ending, as happy as it can be. Let these people get caught. You can't have some shit like this just out there like this. What the fuck? So she walks off and she gets on the horse and she starts riding the horse out. And the noise and the commotion of them screaming in the furnace, of course, calls everybody over. So she's riding off into the forest to get the fuck away from there. And they are chasing her, shooting after her. And then here comes the plantation owner's wife. Turns out she is the senator's daughter. And eventually they meet up in the woods. And she's just talking about how, I told him not to pick you. I told him you would be a problem. But he just wanted you. Daddy just had to have you. I picked all the other people that came here. But he just had to have you. And now look what's happening. And so she ends up like fucking this bitch up, lassoing her around the neck and dragging her ass on the horse, and then slams her ass against a Robert E. Lee statue, and she's dead. Good for her. Good. Kill these motherfuckers. So then she rides the horse out, and she rides it through the Confederate and Union war scene that's reenacted. So that's in the front part of the park they're reenacting, and she rides it all the way to like the concession stand area where there's people, our family is buying food and eating, and while we're watching this fake reenactment of this war that why are we continuing to reenact this shit? The South lost. That's all you need to know. Like, why do you need to whatever. And then the police come, and she just was looking up at the sky, and she's in a daze, and there's so much trauma that she's experienced over weeks and weeks at a time. I need to know, like, how did she get past this? Like, how did she grow from this? And I also need it because I thought it was over after that, and I was just like, so are they not going to show them coming and arresting all these people? Like, so after the credits, they show the FBI coming in. They're going through the fields. They're interviewing the slaves, and then they're bulldozing down the whole park, and it's a beautiful scene. All them people traumatized and messed with and bothered, and I'm bothered. A theme that is often brought up in this movie too, and was, it was mentioned in the beginning of the movie, was that the past is never dead. It's not even past. William Faulkner. So they even started off the movie just letting you know that this is not the past. And I mean, yeah, we bring our past into so much. I mean, that's what trauma is. We're just recycling the past that we have in our bodies and that we have in our subconscious. We're just recycling it over and over and over again until we can bring it to our conscious and let it go. And it takes a lot of work to do that. But, this is more like a overt way that the past has come to haunt us. And it's just like, it's a lot to have to. It was triggering. I feel like this is triggering. Is this a real thing? Because I'm scared. Is this a real thing? Because I'm scared, people. Let me know. I mean, how would you know? But like, this shit was crazy. They had a whole cosplay slavery park where they was killing and raping and pillaging black folks, and they didn't give a fuck, and they set this whole thing up, and they kidnapped this woman, and just killing people. How long has this been there? How many bodies is buried underneath the ground? How many people have they burnt up? What the fuck? Have y'all watched this movie? just be prepared for a lot of shit that might be triggering, because this is realistic. I mean, I believe that some shit like this could happen. The way that the world is set up, the way that the United States of America, I believe that some shit like this could happen. Just be careful. You know, that's all we can really do. That's all we really can control. You know, people out there that are advocates and that are for justice, that are fighting for black people, you know, keep fighting, because this is some shit that could happen. I felt this movie in my soul. I was like, this is some shit that can happen. That might be happening. I mean, you know, I feel it. Like they got the child sex slave rings and shit around here, and they got the organ taking and experimentations on black people. You know, I feel like this is some shit that could happen. So let me know what you thought of this review of this movie, of the things that happened in this movie. If you saw the movie, I would suggest seeing the movie. It's a really good movie. Janelle Monáe did amazing. You just felt the trauma radiating off of her. Just radiating off of her. Like those moments where they were asking her to free them and she would just stand there and just, you know, she just had this, we call it flat affect, where your face isn't, you know, showing any expression throughout the whole time she was on that plantation. It was like she was disassociating in some ways, to just emotionally step back from whatever was going on, whatever was happening to her and shit like that. And it was a lot. It was a lot. I felt triggered. But yeah, that is my review of Antebellum. I will be reviewing the next episode of Lovecraft Country next. Like I said, I will post a little vlog about what's been going on in my life. So you guys kind of get an idea of why things have been a little bit late or hectic and things like that. But yeah, let me know what you thought of this review and of this movie. Hopefully you watched it before watching this review, because like I said, spoiler alert. Because basically the spoiler is the whole movie. That's the shocking part. And yeah, later days.